Welcome to Skeptical Scott and Friends, saving souls from bad arguments. Please join us as we drop the supernatural, embrace the rational, and believe in as many true things as possible. Listeners, think of some of the best teams you've been a part of, whether in athletics, a corporation, or a fast food joint. You know, I bet it's easier to think of some of the worst dysfunctional ones you've been a part of. Have you ever experienced a boss who talks a good game but doesn't follow his own advice? Perhaps they rule through fear, and people quickly respond when the boss is around, but it becomes like the saying, when the cat's away, the mice will play. Do our teams even know what they're ultimately doing, and are they committed? Have you ever felt replaceable? These are the kind of places that people quit. Today, we have Dr. Darrel Ray, founder of Recovering from Religion and the Secular Therapy Project. He's also a psychologist and author. And for decades, Darrel served as a consultant to help organizations deal with their own bullshit. Wait, was that a little too harsh? His latest chapters of life coincide with a lot of you listeners, the secular space, and how to connect and grow within secular groups. That's a big need right now. Consider this your invite to the Institute of Secular Leadership. Please welcome to our show, Dr. Darrel Ray. Hey, Darrel.
Hey.
Anything to correct from that introduction, or maybe add something that not a lot of people know about you?
That's fine. We might find some of that other stuff out later as we talk about other things. But yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for the introduction.
You bet. Hey, how are you arriving today? What's good in your world?
Gosh, what's good? Well, what we're talking about right now, this is my passion, leadership, and it has been for almost 40 years. So I'm thrilled to be able to talk to you about it. Because as you know, I'm pretty passionate about this.
You are definitely passionate. And you know, the first time I met you was at the American Atheists in Minneapolis. It was a quick hello.
Oh, really?
It was very quick. It was towards the end, and I saw a cover of a book that had a lady with her back turned towards me, you know, tight jeans, had the big word sex on it. It said sex and God. And you also had a couple friends that were helping you at the tables. And I was just checking it out, and I was like, you know what? How religion distorts sexuality. I want to read that. And so I picked it up. You signed it for me. Thank you for that. You know what else is good? I'm wearing my Detroit Lions hat, but I wore this red shirt for you, Darrel. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Because you're a Chiefs fan, correct?
I'm absolutely a Chiefs fan, and I was cheering for the Lions after the Chiefs kind of lost it last season, but I like the Lions. My nephew is a big Lions fan, so he and I were bonding over the Lions until they too got knocked out.
Yes, I've got lots of friends who are Chiefs fans, so I can definitely play with that. But hey, you know, this is a timely episode. A lot of times I record far, far ahead in advance, but this one's coming out pretty quick. Why do you think it's a timely episode?
Well, because we're getting ready to start our third cohort for the Leadership Institute for Leadership.
May 2nd.
Right. And the interesting thing, you don't know this, the intermediate course, the course you went through was the foundations course, but the intermediate course is already full.
How about that?
We literally have no seats left for the intermediate course. And the first one, the one you were in, was full too. There is a real niche for this. There's a real important need for it. And I'm glad that we're developing this approach to leadership in the secular world. We'll talk about that more later, sure. But I thought we were going to talk about sex to begin with.
We're going to talk about sex, but I will say I'm glad I got my butt in the seat for the intermediate course. So we'll see you then. But yeah, let's talk about sex just for a second. We are not trying to trick you, audience. We just thought, you know, sex would draw you in a little bit. You once said in one of our class sessions that you find sex fascinating, right? Hey, who doesn't, right? Why that book?
Yeah.
Why was that book written originally?
Well, it goes clear back to when I was 12 years old. My mother caught me masturbating, and I was horrified that she had caught me, of course. But she sat down beside me. I was in my bed, you know, doing my thing, and she sat down beside me, patted me on the shoulder, and said, "That's all right, Darrel. You won't do it when you get married." And she was half right.
Oh man, that's great.
Ever since then, I've just been fascinated with sex and why I was so horrified, why people have so much shame and guilt around
Correct.
such a natural thing. It's fascinating. And also, how does culture impact people's sexuality, and how religion especially distorts it in a way that is totally unnatural. So anyway, that's the purpose of the whole book.
I loved reading it at the airport and on the plane, and I sure got some looks with that cover, but I kind of was proud of it. I was like, hey, no shame. No shame. Here we go. Hey, I loved it. I highly recommend it. It was a breath of fresh air, and it helped sort out some hangups that I've experienced, and I'm sure others do too. So thank you for offering that to the world. Honestly, we could do the whole interview on that book. Listeners, it's in the show notes, as well as Dr. Ray's other books. In fact, Darrel, my next one will be The God Virus. Now that we've enticed you all with some sex, we'll just close Sex and God for now with a new commandment that you suggest in that book. Go ye therefore and enjoy deity-free sex. Have fun.
Thank you. That's great.
Well, here comes the bridge, though. Here comes the bridge from that book to what we're currently working on. In your work with organizations, that included a lot of church leaders early on, didn't it?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I went to seminary. I got my master's degree at Garrett College for Christian Workers, where I was involved with lots of ministers and Sunday school teachers and administrators and all. So I saw it firsthand when I was about 26 years old, 25, 26, working on that master's degree. Even well before that, I was a Sunday school teacher in my home church in Wichita, Kansas. I was raised in a pretty fundamentalist family, not super fundamentalist. I don't want to overdo it. I had good parents. I had a lot of fun as a child. I wasn't traumatized, but I was impacted, and there's a difference. And part of that impact was the shame and guilt that religion of my parents and my family taught me. What I saw in those years of growing up as an adolescent was I saw 8 different ministers, 8 different congregations behave inappropriately, have sex with people they themselves said you shouldn't have sex with. And it just made me ask the question, what's going on here? If the most indoctrinated leaders can't keep their pants zipped up, then why do they expect the rest of us to? And what I saw was, for example, we had a very nice girl in our congregation get pregnant, quote, out of wedlock. I hate that term, of course. The whole church just vilified her. Mm-hmm. But our youth minister got caught, having sex with somebody that he shouldn't have had. And he was forgiven because you're supposed to forgive. Anyway, I just saw this disconnect between what people were preaching and what people were doing. And then the next thing I noticed that's related to what we're talking about is that all of those people had been through, quote, leadership training. Every single church I've ever been involved with had some kind of leadership, especially leadership for young people. They were always trying to capture kids when they were young. And that leadership training was clearly biased in going towards a certain outcome. As I got into my adult profession, after I graduated with my doctorate in psychology, I actually ended up in organizational psychology. I practiced clinically for 10 years, but ultimately ended up in org psych. And in that, I could see leadership from a very different angle. That's where we are today. I'm thinking every person I was involved with, corporate America, was hiring me to come in and teach them how to lead. And I had a great career, 35 years of doing that. But when I published The God Virus in 2009, I got exposed to all the issues around leadership in the secular community. And that's what inspired me to start developing or think about developing what we're talking about here today. So this goes way back to 2009 when I started recovering from religion. I started the Secular Therapy Project. And I was really consumed by those 2 projects, or I probably would have started this 10 years ago. I just didn't have enough time to do it. I needed 3 of me at that time. Anyway, every church you look at will have a leadership training program. And there is no leadership training for anywhere in the secular world. Why the hell are they training and we're not training? That's the big question.
And I think it's part of the reason why we have such a problem leaning into community groups for secular people. One word that you used in the first book, but that kind of bridges over, is the word complicity. Why would a church bring you in?
Well, you got to remember, I was still semi-religious. I was very liberal in that 1970s, 1980s. I'm dating myself here, aren't I? But they brought me in to help them because they were having conflict problems. They were having problems with the minister behavior. There was a number of things. I was literally brought in 2 times, formally brought in 2 times. I didn't make a career out of this. I'm not claiming that. But everybody knew I was an organizational psychologist. So I also taught Sunday school, or I preached. I was kind of a substitute preacher for about 10 years. And I just saw they were having problems they didn't know how to deal with. So they would bring me in to help moderate or train a board. For example, the board training was important for some churches. But I wasn't involved in the secular community in the 1980s. I was aware of it. I wasn't involved in it because I was still developing my own career and other things. But ultimately, I needed to see the secular community from the inside out before I could really see, okay, here's what's needed here. But I've been training corporate America, and I had trained churches. Next step is train the secular world.
And so I'm going to go back to that word complicity, because yes, we talked about kind of the obvious sexual scandals and stuff that happen in church, meaning there's some hidden things going on. But I think the word complicity also can be other categories in terms of what we allow leaders to do, or, what's the saying, what we permit, we promote.
Yeah.
You know, those kinds of issues. And I think that's what you're able to facilitate with what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Technically, you're retired. Is that right?
Technically, right. Probably working more and working harder than I did before I retired, but I'm having fun.
I love it. I admire you and your rewirement, which brings us to the Leadership Foundations course. And so I think, I was going to ask you what need are you really addressing, but I think you've somewhat hit that already. I'm going to just borrow from what I've been able to pull from the website, which listeners, check the show notes. You'll see it. Leaders who want to lead ethically without ideology. Secular, evidence-informed leadership education. We value critical thinking, ethical judgment, decision-making, and I love people-centered leadership practices. As you're hearing those awesome words, what else do you want to say about that?
Well, that's really the focus, is people-centered, because people are what makes this whole thing work or doesn't work. Within the framework of you ask about complicity, what you see in an organization that has hidden agendas, you see a lot of complicity between the board, who turns their head, and the executive director or the president, who is misbehaving, or vice versa, or any number of combinations within that. And when you talk about ethical leadership, it means we have to expose our hidden agendas. We have to be aware of motivations that can undermine the organization. And that is a hard thing to do. And as you know, you've been through the course. A lot of what the course is not just here's a new technique or here's a philosophy. Here's the psychology of leadership. And here's why people fail in leadership, because they are not aware of their own internal motivations. There's nothing wrong with having internal motivations. There's a lot wrong in hiding those and manipulating other people to achieve those internal motivations. And so there's just so much that we talk about in the course about the psychology of being a leader and recognizing, for example, one of the things I talk about real early, as you know, is that you have no private life if you're a leader. Mm-hmm. Whether you like it or not, if you want to be a leader, you have to realize you're being watched all the time. And so your example makes or breaks your ability to lead a particular group.
Hi there. My name is Janice Selby. I founded the Conference on Religious Trauma and wrote the #1 Amazon bestseller, Divorcing Religion, a memoir and survival handbook. I recently graduated with the first cohort of the Foundations course with the Institute for Secular Leadership. One thing that was addressed in this class was how to avoid getting bogged down with trying to solve other people's problems. It's a very important skill for group leaders to learn, and Dr. Ray did a great job teaching it. Thanks, Darrel.
What I liked about the courses is the practicality. You would give us a challenge for the next 2 weeks to put into play. And when you've got that critical lens and you're looking for it, you see it. I mean, how many organizations, Darrel, have you seen that start out strong, like a flash in the pan, and then ultimately fold?
Yeah. Well, and they're almost always started by people who are very charismatic. They got a lot of energy. They got a lot of passion, but no skills. And that's the problem. I can be as passionate as I want about airplanes, but does that mean I can get in the airplane and fly it? No, because I don't have that skill. And you have to create the skill. You have to learn the skill. It takes time to learn that skill. It takes mistakes to learn that skill as a leader. People think, well, because I'm passionate, because I've got a lot of energy, because I've read a lot of books, or I met someone at an atheist conference.
Right.
Then I can be a leader. And that's a good start. I have no problems with people coming in with that passion, but they also need to learn, you got to learn the skills. And if you let a year or 2 or 3 go and you don't have the skills, you build some really bad habits. And not just build bad habits in yourself, bad leadership habits, you build bad followership habits too. And we're really trying to prevent that from happening. In the course, we're trying to say, look, here's the behaviors that really positively impact the people who want to follow you. And, oh, by the way, you might not be here in 10 years. Mm-hmm. Do you want your organization to die, or do you want it to thrive? As you know, we put a lot of emphasis on training and teaching, instructing and praising people into the performance that you're going to need to have a successor, to have a successful, long-term, viable organization.
I love how you bring up the point of it's going to take a lot of time either way. I would rather take more time on the front rather than having to unlearn and have everybody else unlearn something we've put in place.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard to unlearn. In fact, research, many kinds of research show that it takes about 6 times as much to unlearn a bad habit as it did to learn the habit in the first place. I mean, just think about if you're a smoker or you've had a bad habit you didn't like. It was very easy to pick that cigarette up the first time, but the last cigarette took a lot more effort than the first one did. And that's where we are. We're developing good habits because we don't have to undo bad habits later.
I don't know those of you out there in the listenership, if you've ever served on a board before. So Darrel, I want to think board 101 right now. For people who have never been on a board before, number 1, what's the ultimate purpose of a board? And number 2, this kind of goes along the lines of who you're looking for to take this class. Oh,
yeah, right. The class is the title's leadership, of course. Mm-hmm. But leadership comes at many different levels. Leadership isn't just the president of the organization or the founder of the organization. It's also the board of the organization. It's also the chairpersons of the various committees of the organization or sub teams of the organization. So we're focused on any of those. Any of those people will benefit from this course. So one of the main goals of the course is to train people in how to lead a board and how to be on a board. In fact, you're going to find, because you haven't been in the intermediate course, we spent a whole session just on boards and how do you select people to be on boards? How do you train a board? How do you bring people onto a board? The onboarding of a board member, for example. Many organizations just say, oh, you want to be on the board? Yeah, come on. That's a terrible way to get board members. That's what I call the warm body approach.
Right. And we need a body.
Our bylaws says we need 7 people. We'll grab the next 2 and put them on the board. That's a pretty bad way to run an organization. And it's oftentimes, the leader's best friend.
Right. Somebody who will just agree with me. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to push back on crazy ideas or whatever.
Hey, my name is Elliot, and I'm a graduate with the first cohort of the Foundations course with the Institute for Secular Leadership. One of the things I really loved about this experience was getting a chance to have personal connections with some other major players and leaders in the secular space already. We've had the opportunity to bounce ideas off of each other, implement different practices in our own communities, and have even started a couple of collaboration projects already after just a few weeks. It's a great course, and everybody should take it.
We really are interested in the whole organization. And one thing that is important about this, our goal isn't to train the people in that class. That's not the main goal. The main goal is to train 1,000 people. Mm-hmm. I want to train 1,000 leaders over the next 10 years. And I would love to see every organization have multiple people trained in this process. Not just one, but 3 or 4 people. Because once 3 or 4 people get the language we're using, the techniques we're using, the best practices we're teaching, then you start getting a critical mass mm-hmm. of people following the best practices. If one person goes back and says, well, I want to start implementing some of the stuff I learned back in the leadership course, yeah, that's okay. You'll get some pushback. People won't understand. They'll argue with it, and you won't get very far maybe. But if you and your vice president or you and 2 other people have had this mm-hmm. same training, it makes a lot of difference in the adoption of these practices. And they're systematic practices. There's practices I have seen for 40 years in my career. I know what works. I know what doesn't work. I can give you the skills, give you the ideas that you can then experiment with, and you can figure out what works for your particular organization. Not everything I teach is appropriate to every organization. I do guarantee those participants that everything we teach will have relevance to your career in the leadership sooner or later. Maybe not today, but next year.
That's what kind of grabbed my attention, Darrel, is that my job is in the lane of leadership with schools and whatnot. I'm not going to mention it here, but I am interested in how I'm going to use that 10-year example. 10 years from now, who are the people that are going to be actually helping lead our country mm-hmm. as I hope we become more and more secular? Who's going to be sitting on those boards? You're planting some seeds, Darrel.
Well, and boards have fiduciary duties to make sure finances are well taken care of. They're also a big part of being a board member is making sure the mission is clear and you've got boundaries around the mission so you don't have mission drift. Board members have pretty important responsibilities. And when I first talk about this with people, they say, wow, that's a lot of work. I think, yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's no more work than doing it wrong and have to undo it
exactly. later. Yeah. And how great when you get the system going where you're not having to think so hard because it's in place. That comes right. back to that system, systematic or system that you're saying.
Yeah. It's a systems approach to secular leadership.
Good.
What we're hoping to see, and I think we're already seeing a little bit of it. You yourself are a great example of the networking component of this institute. We are teaching people the skills in the system, but ultimately, after people leave the course, I want them talking to each other and sharing right. with each other and getting on each other's podcasts, for example, like we're doing right now. Or there's any number of things people support each other and share ideas, share resources. Think about this. Every denomination, whether it's Seventh-day Adventists or Mormons, Baptists, they all have leadership training. And from that leadership training comes a network of people who went through the training together and now share the same biblical or theological or whatever you want to call it, framework. We don't have that.
Right.
We've got all this conflict in the secular movement. I've seen this for 20 years now. Organizations starting off with a bang, doing great for 2 or 3 years, and then there's a conflict and the whole thing falls apart. Well, why did it fall apart? Because they didn't know how to handle conflict constructively. The second thing is, if you go way back in the history of the secular movement, you'll see it wasn't 10 years until the main groups had already split over conflict. And that split still impacts our entire movement today. I'm not going to go into the history, but sure. You can go back and read the 2 biggest groups split. And we see this splitting and splitting and splitting. It almost looks like we're Baptist churches. Because, there's a new Baptist church every 3 days.
That's
because
true.
They're splitting over conflict. Well, when you learn how to to manage conflict appropriately, conflict is a great ally. Conflict is a good thing because it helps you understand where your weak spots are, what decisions you have, what values you're trying to implement in your organization. If you look at conflict and you don't agree with me, so we're going to split the whole group, you've just wasted years of effort. And one or the other of those groups is probably going to die completely. So you've lost everything you put into that.
But you were right. At least you were right.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's like, what's more important right now? So, and there are times, Darrel, when I'm with a group where I will on purpose just lay it out on the table and cause a little conflict because I know what's on the other side. If we can just address it. Because how well do we behave when everyone knows the elephant in the room, but no one's addressing it?
Yeah.
It's real important to question what you know. So before you leave this podcast, it's the skeptic of the show.
Darrel, I have 2 quotes for you, and I'm wondering where it comes from. Here we go. Underperformance is costly, wastes huge amounts of resources, and often is hidden from view until an emergency hits. And then the second one, high performance organizations aren't necessarily smarter or better trained or equipped. They just waste less energy on mistrust, conflict, and goal confusion. How about that? Those are some wise words, my friend.
Well, that's cool. I really like the author of that
too.
Those quotes. Very smart guy.
Hey, there's
assuming it was a guy.
It was. And it was an article, I believe that you co-wrote. Is that correct? Called Managing Horizontal Accountability. Now, I'm not necessarily going to, unpack that whole quote or anything, but I think it is interesting about often it's hidden until an emergency hits, which really brings up what we were just talking about. That emergency is a conflict, a financial decision that went awry, or the leader dies. Yeah. Or the leader moves on. Now it's a crisis because people have not been equipped.
Right. Well, underlying those quotes is one word, and that's trust. Mm-hmm. And trust, I'll give you another quote. Trust comes from a pattern of trustworthy behavior.
That's good.
Reliable, consistent behavior in the leader creates trust in the followers because they know the leader's going to behave in a certain way. They're not going to get mad. They're not going to yell at anybody. They're going to blame or finger point. They're going to problem solve. They're going to ask good Socratic questions. All that leads to trust. Francis Fukuyama wrote a book years ago, really good book. Just the title of the book is Trust. That's the whole title, Trust. And what he does is he kind of looks at how trust is developed from a business and cultural standpoint. And organizations that have high levels of trust are really efficient and are very flexible in the economic environment. They're not dying from the internal conflict. Dr. Edwards Deming had another very famous quote that companies don't die from external competition. They die from internal conflict. Mm-hmm. And so the more internal friction you have, the harder it is. It's like don't put oil. If you don't put oil in your engine and the oil runs out, the friction is going to kill the car. And we need, as leaders, trust is the oil of leadership. And trustworthy behavior is what creates that lubrication, if you will, within an organization.
Trustworthy behavior allows us to actually handle conflict efficiently. Yeah. Rather than wasting a lot of time on conflict. I'll say unresolved conflict, Right. Yeah. Right. Where can people learn more about this, Darrel?
Well, they can go to secularleadership.org. That's where all the information is, and they can look at the courses. They can look at we got a brief outline of all the courses, so you can tell. There's actually 2 right now. We're going to have more courses, but right now there's 2 courses. One's called the Foundations course. Each session is 2 hours long, and it goes for 4 sessions. And then when you're graduated from that, you're qualified to enroll for the next course, the intermediate course. You have to take 3 of the 4 courses before you're allowed to go to the next one for obvious reasons. If you can't make all 4 of them, you miss one, you can come back and make it up at the next offering of the foundations course. But we absolutely are not allowing anybody in unless they've finished at least 3 of the 4. So you can see all the outline there of what we're looking at, what we're teaching in each one of the courses. Once you get into the course, then you're also admitted into the greater network. And for that, we're using some software called Circle. And you get admitted, once you're registered, you get admitted to Circle where people can talk to each other. It's kind of like, I guess, Discord but it's just for us, and it's just for the leadership of the Secular Institute. What we see coming in the future as we get more and more people graduating from these classes is more and more people in this network who can compare notes and talk to each other. And if you happen to be in, Huntsville, Alabama, you might want to call up one of the other people who went through the same course, go visit their group or whatever. We can start creating this network that's never existed before. And this network is unofficial. It's not mandatory. And you can make friends and you can get people together if you want in whatever way you like. That's the ultimate goal of this whole effort is network, network, network. In my estimation, networks are the most powerful tool for leadership. And here's why. Because if you call me up today and say, hey, I got a problem here, I might not have the solution, but I know somebody that's seen that before. And I'll say, get a hold of Susan over here. She just had that same problem. The network provides access to resources that you wouldn't get any other way. And that's important. That's so critical. So you can find us on secularleadership.org. The second thing you can do is to go to our Facebook page, Secular Leadership, on Facebook, because we'll be announcing different pieces there. We're going to have a free introductory meeting for anybody that wants to find out more. We'll answer all the questions. We'll go through some of the stuff we're talking about here. May 2nd is when the next course starts. And that's cohort number 3. That'll be the 3rd class we've taught of the foundations course. And in just a few weeks, we're starting the intermediate course, which you're involved in already, but it's already full.
Hey, that demand that you thought might be there is definitely there, Darrel, with all these people signing up.
It is. So, we also limit every class to 10 people.
Yeah, to make it powerful.
Yeah.
Which I am glad you do that. I'm on enough Zooms with 60 people.
Yeah.
When you have that intimate group of about 10, kind of like a board, right? No larger. All right. Last question, Darrel. Are you a cat person or a dog person?
I'm a both person. I own a dog. I do have a great dog. I've had cats in the past. I would have both if I didn't travel so much.
Yes. Go ahead. Sorry,
I don't. Just traveling with cats is. I've got people who'll take care of my dog. I don't have anybody who wants to take care of cats. So.
Well, I'm allergic
why do you
to cats.
Ask me?
Well, my dogs were going nuts about 20 minutes ago. Hopefully you didn't hear that. They were howling.
Oh, no, I didn't.
But I ask that because kind of like what you just said, there's a myth about secular people in terms of.
Oh.
So can you address that as our final thought for today?
Oh, yes. You know, that at the very first opening act, so to speak, of the course, I actually go into this. I say, one of my pet peeves is when people say leading secular people is like herding cats, or leading atheists is like herding cats. And I really get irritated at that because we are human beings. And if you can't lead human beings, and if you say something like that, you're telling me a lot more about your leadership style than their followership style. There are successful organizations all over the world that are secular. I could give many examples, but one example is right here where I live in Kansas City. And as you know, we had a meeting with the board of Oasis, Kansas City Oasis. You and other people within the course were able to, on Zoom, ask questions, interact, and really experience another organization that may or may not be doing everything Darrel teaches. I'm not saying they have to or do, but they're successful. And what I want to do is I want to connect and show people that we're not cats, we're humans. And there is a way to lead secular people. And it's different than the way you lead religious people. Religious leaders lead in a very different style, very autocratic, of course, and authoritarian. You can't do that with skeptics.
Right.
Skeptical Scott is not going to follow an authoritarian leader. And neither will skeptical Darrel, by the way.
Yeah. Well, and dogs are known for being loyal, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to an organization, do I really just want a bunch of loyal people who don't push back? You know,
Yeah.
That's the beauty of secular atheists and agnostics, is that we're going to push back and we're actually going to probably get a better result. So let's not use that myth as an excuse for not creating a great organization.
Right. Absolutely. I'd like to switch roles just for one
You
second
bet.
here. I know we're running out of time here.
Oh, I'm good. As long as we're not over 59.59.
Oh,
That was an inside joke for the people who have been through the course. All right,
yep.
go ahead.
Yeah, they'll, if you've been through the course, you'll know some of this language. And that's a part of what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a common language. You know, when we all speak the same language, we really communicate a lot better, and we can achieve things better. No, my question is, what's something that you have put into practice as a result of going through the course that you think made it valuable or useful to you?
One is that, and I think I've heard versions of this before, but the way you put it and the examples we heard made it really solid. And that is, praising is teaching. Is that how you say it?
Praise is instruction.
Praise is instruction was one. But then the other one was my own behavior as a leader, as somebody who likes to, you know, who doesn't want to add value, right? Who doesn't want to add value to an organization? But there is such a thing as overdoing it and rescuing people, and then having it like putting the monkey on my back when it's it's really not mine. Why did I take it on? But I can't resent the other person when I'm the one who took it on. So there's a great article on that you had us read that really shifted my thinking on that. And I put that one in play this month.
Oh, so, good.
Yes,
okay.
I appreciate that.
As I told you, that one article is probably one of the most important articles I ever read in my professional career. It's really, really valuable.
We gave you a taste. Y'all. Darrel, thank you. Thank you for creating this. Again, I admire somebody who, I hope it's okay to say people your age, right? Our age might go to Florida, golf for a while or something, right?
Nah, I don't want to golf.
I love how involved you are. You are giving really valuable information, but also giving people skills and confidence to lead. That's what's needed. So thank you, Darrel.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm glad, and thank you for helping promote this. I really appreciate that.
You bet.
We can't get to 1,000 leaders without people like you helping us get there.
Multipliers. Let's multiply.
Yep.
All right.
You're a
Thank
multiplier.
You, Darrel. All right, listeners, are you considering the foundational leadership course? Whether you're just curious about a future offering or you want in on cohort number 3 in May, the next free preview meeting, it's this Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern. That's 1 p.m. Central. And for my friends in the UK, that is 7 p.m. You can find the link in our show notes. Thanks for listening to Skeptical Scott and Friends. Find our link tree and more at skepticalscott.com. Have a question, or are you interested in sharing a part of your questimony? Email me at heyskepticalscott@gmail.com. Drop the supernatural, embrace the rational, believe in as many true things as possible. I'll see you every first and third Friday, though this particular episode arrived a little early in time for you to take advantage of the next course at the Institute of Secular Leadership with Darrel. May skeptical thoughts be with you. Cheers.